She was only 20 years old, but she had already experienced numerous difficulties and painful memories. Recently, she got a job at a gas station as an operator. The girl grew up in an orphanage, and she reluctantly recalled those times. She had few friends within the children's collective, where an atmosphere of competition rather than friendship prevailed. However, she wasn't an orphan from birth. She remembered her mother, with whom she lived until the age of 6, and after her death, she was raised by an alcoholic stepfather. The man was almost never sober and would fly into a rage at the slightest noise, often abusing the young stepdaughter. After his wife's death, he completely stopped caring for the girl, not providing her with food because he was fired from his job and could only afford alcohol. Fortunately, concerned neighbors who witnessed his neglectful behavior called social services. They assessed the condition and living conditions, noting why this person couldn't put two words together to defend the starving stepdaughter, and the state of the apartment in shambles. They soon placed her in an orphanage, where her life was under the supervision of professional educators, with warmth and regular meals. It was still better than living with an alcoholic who could harm the little girl at any moment. Life eventually punished him as he perished in a fire caused by a forgotten cigarette. After many years in the orphanage, she was finally released, but the government did not provide her with a small apartment. Her apartment was simple, old, with worn-out repairs, creaking doors, and overly vigilant neighbors who were wary of the orphan. They were afraid that she might bring criminal elements into the apartment, so they always kept an eye on her movements. Neither the new neighbor nor receiving an apartment helped Valentina Nikolaevna, the only caregiver with whom the girl had developed a trusting relationship. The woman was a mother of many children herself, so she treated her wards like her own. The short and sweet girl never loved anyone as much as she loved that woman. Since then, they were friends and shared all their difficulties, and for the past 2 years, she has been living independently but still remembers to call and visit Valentina periodically. The woman is always happy to see her and welcomes her visits. The children and caregivers treat her well and often invite her to those holidays when a person especially needs family. It was challenging for the orphan to find a job. Even the dirtiest ones required education. In the HR department, they looked at her as if she wasn't fit for any responsibilities. Sometimes, after enduring another exhausting internship, for which they didn't pay a penny, she would be denied employment. She wandered around the organization for a long time and offered her services. During the interview, she assured them that she would definitely handle the job and become a responsible employee, but they still weren't satisfied. In the end, she managed to get a job as an operator. Upon her request, they provided her with the work overall, arranged an internship, and immediately hired her. They were short-staffed, so they were happy to have anyone willing to endure the working conditions, despite their success. His behavior didn't bother the boss, Daniel, the owner of the gas station chain, who had a weakness for pretty girls. His wife and 2 children didn't stop him from engaging in various escapades and fleeting affairs. She often caught his lustful gaze on her. Sometimes he would pass by and touch her hair, waist, or thigh. "What are you doing?" She would recoil from him, and there was not a trace of remorse in Daniel's gaze. "Why are you so scared?" he would say. "It's natural. The attraction between a man and a woman is inevitable." In my opinion, it's interesting if you hired me hoping for something more, the girl snapped. What are you talking about? I'm just saying that you have plenty of opportunities to advance. Just say the word, and I won't refuse you, the man playfully winked. Every time she returned to her duties after such encounters with her boss, the girl tried to avoid him to get rid of the terrible feeling. She also had trouble with the team and the bathroom. She didn't engage in conflicts, tried to fit in, learn the jokes, habits. She wanted to be accepted. Apart from her, two other girls, Svetlana and Olga, also worked at the gas station. Both had been working there for several years and were so confident in their impunity that they engaged in some manipulations behind the boss's back. They would shortchange customers during fueling, doing so every shift. By the end of the day, both swindlers had a decent sum of money. But she saw that dishonest activity and didn't want to join them. She worked conscientiously, from paycheck to paycheck. She didn't resort to other illegal ways of earning money. The thought of stealing was unpleasant to her. She started regarding her colleagues with caution and didn't trust them too much. You're such a fool, the girls would laugh at her. Who needs your honesty? Clients won't go bankrupt because of those amounts. Does it make you feel good? I can't. I would torment myself for such a deed, she would say frankly. But they didn't want to listen to their colleagues' remarks. Look at you working hard, and no one will thank you or give you a bonus. Only Daniel is always ready to please, Olga laughed. And I kept working and receiving an honest salary. That's how I lived. Once a stray kitten wandered into the gas station and got all wet. The girl felt sorry for him and let him inside. She fed him and kept him warm, and after her shift, she took him to her apartment. Life became more joyful with the kitten. It was nice to have someone waiting for you at the door after a day of work. Several months passed, and she fully adapted. She worked faster. With joy, but still focused on their tasks, they listened to their grumpy boss complaining about the decreasing profits from the gas station. We work round the clock, so many cars come in a day, and we barely break even. If it continues like this, I'll have to sell my business. So my good people, before it's too late, start looking for new jobs. But they didn't want to end up without money. What a pity. Olga and Svetlana considered Daniel Valerievich as someone they could rely on, but it was evident from their eyes that they didn't want to deal with the complications of learning new tricks elsewhere. They even realized that they could have caused damage to the boss's network with their careless actions. Everything happened as expected. Daniel left, and within a month and a half, a new owner from Siberia took over the chain of gas stations. No one had seen him yet, so they didn't know what to expect. Daniel remained as the acting director, keeping an eye on the team's work. She decided that it couldn't get any worse than working under him, so she chose not to quit her job and not chase after elusive hopes of a better life. One day, a red Zaporozhets drove into the gas station, driven by an old bearded man in a checkered shirt. Wow, what a relic, Svetlana laughed, and her friend joined in. How hadn't it fallen apart on the road? Even the boss, who occasionally lingered with them and made jokes, responded to their loud laughter. The old man got out of the car, patted his pockets, and exclaimed, I must have lost my mind, my dear girls. I forgot my wallet at home. What a predicament, my dear girls. I'm going crazy without any money. She looked at him with compassion, tears welling up in her eyes, and there was nothing left in the fuel tank. He couldn't drive in or out. Ladies, please fill up the tank on credit. I urgently need to pick up my son from the airport. I'll pay for everything on the way back. He's not destitute, I assure you. Please, I'm in such a desperate situation. I need to go, she said, her voice filled with despair. Haven't seen each other in 15 years. What a foolish old man I am. I was so naive. Which airport, Grandpa? Olga said. You have such a rickety car, and I bet you wanted to fill up for free, and then we would have to search for you in our own pockets. I swear, I'll return everything, just help me out. I'm putting my wedding ring as collateral, so you won't doubt that I'll come back. It's made of gold, it will cover all the expenses. At that moment, he tried to explain, but he couldn't. It had almost become a part of his skin after wearing it for so many years. My wife passed away long ago. I found this ring as a memory of her, but now she's no longer needed. Take it, girls, I have no one left except my only son. I'm trying my best. I really want to see him soon. I'll forget what he looks like. Wait. Olga ran up to him. She couldn't bear to see her colleagues mocking the poor old man, who was willing to give away his last memory of his wife just for their sympathy. I don't need your ring. I'll fill up the tank. Save it for yourself, little bird. I'll pay for it on my way back. Will you pay in full? The old man bowed before her. I don't need anything, Grandpa. Forget it. And you two? What are you doing? Daniel shouted. Subtract it from my salary. I can't afford to pay you anyway. And maybe it was your wastefulness with our gasoline that got us into bankruptcy. Olga retorted. It's your fault, Olga erupted. And you sold everything. Don't make up stories, Daniel Valerievich, she said, surprised at the firmness in her own voice. And if you want to accuse me of something, present some evidence. Her colleagues stared at the defiant girl with astonished eyes. No one expected her to be capable of such a response. Even Daniel couldn't come up with a reply. He hadn't found any scapegoats, but he needed someone to shift. 40 minutes later, the old man returned in his Zaporozhets, just as he promised. But this time, he wasn't alone. He was accompanied by a young and presentable man in a business suit. He turned out to be the driver's son, whom the old man had proudly and eagerly talked about. Hello, the man greeted energetically. My name is Konstantin Mikhailovich Logovoy. I am the new owner of your chain of gas stations. Everyone present was stunned. Svetlana and Olga regretted finding new jobs so quickly upon seeing the pleasant young boss. They hadn't made the right decision after all. Ah, what a handsome man you are, and we didn't expect to meet you so soon. Nice to meet you, I'm Olga, I sang out. Girl 1, stepping out, froze. Colleagues surrounded the new boss and started asking about him. It turned out that Konstantin had worked in the mines in Yakutia for a long time and excelled in the mining industry. He was very capable and had earned his first million in 25 years. At the moment, he was an enviable bachelor but wasn't rushing into marriage. During all this time, he dedicated himself to studying and building his own business. And this is my father, Mikhail Yurievich, the man introduced the old man. Well, have you met him yet? Konstantin hadn't been in his hometown for 15 years and hadn't seen his parents for as long. To get home from the airport, he could have called a taxi, but he decided to ask his father to pick him up. Mikhail was pleased to provide such a service to his son. The Zaporozhets didn't bother him at all. It was familiar and dear to him. His father had even taught him to drive on it during his childhood. And I want to mention that my father singled out one employee who helped him a lot today. May I approach you? The girl didn't expect a direct address to herself, but she didn't lose her composure and walked up to the new boss. Thank you for not leaving my old father in trouble. I am far from him when he needs me. I am not an example of the best son, and today you did what I should have done. I am glad that you safely met your father, the girl said. The next day, the working policy at the gas stations changed when Konstantin took charge. It was decided to change the entire staff, leaving only the diligent and cheerful ones. Olga, in particular, had her position upgraded. She became a manager under the supervision of the girl. Several stations were located in the region. Mikhail Yurievich liked to visit the gas station in his Zaporozhets to see his son. God forbid my son become a workaholic, he would say, chuckling. But he hasn't been blessed with cleverness. Can you believe it, Aneshka? He'd overlooked such a bride like you. And where is this workaholic looking? He grumbled. Your son is an amazing person, Olga politely replied. Deep down, she had been harboring a fondness for her boss for a long time. She wasn't bothered by the fact that he was 11 years older than her. The girl wasn't ready to admit yet that she was already receiving courtship from Konstantin. They had recently become a couple, but they kept it a secret even from their closest ones. And the man had a secret even from his beloved. He was already planning to propose to her, and had no doubt she would say yes. In a week, she and Konstantin surprised Mikhail Yurievich with the news of their wedding. The father was overjoyed and hugged his children. If you enjoyed the story, please support me with a thumbs up button. And to be notified of the release of new interesting stories, press the bell icon when subscribing. All the best to you!